The warehouse groaned like a dying animal. Steel beams twisted under impossible weight, concrete dust clouding the air so thick it burned the lungs with every breath. Somewhere beneath the rubble, water hissed from broken pipes, mixing with the acrid smell of scorched metal and shattered dreams. Firefighters moved like shadows through the haze, their yellow helmets bobbing in the smoke-filtered sunlight that barely penetrated the collapsed structure. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood at the perimeter, her radio crackling with static and urgent voices. Her face was streaked with soot, her eyes red-rimmed but sharp. She counted heads, accounted for positions, tracked every soul who'd entered the death trap that used to be Riverside Industrial Complex. The building had pancaked during the morning shift, 3 floors compressed into one horrific sandwich of concrete and human tragedy. Beside her, a German shepherd sat perfectly still. His name was Atlas. His ears stood at attention, triangular satellites tracking every sound, every movement, every whisper of hope in the devastation. The black and tan pattern of his coat was dulled with dust, but his eyes, those amber eyes that had seen too much in his young life, remained alert, focused, waiting. But what he was about to do would defy everything Sarah had trained him for. And in that defiance, he would uncover the one truth that everyone else had missed. The truth that would save the only life that still mattered. 6 months earlier, Sarah had stood in the county shelter with no intention of adopting a dog. She'd come to inspect the facility's compliance with fire safety regulations. A routine check, nothing more. Her clipboard held a dozen items to verify: extinguisher placements, exit signage, sprinkler functionality. She moved through the kennels with professional detachment, her boots clicking on the concrete floor as dogs barked and whined for attention she couldn't afford to give. Then she saw him. He sat in the back corner of Kennel 12, apart from the chaos. While other dogs threw themselves at the chain-link gates desperate for human contact, this one simply watched. His posture was rigid, military almost, as if he'd been carved from stone. Someone had named him Atlas according to the card zip-tied to his gate. 3 years old. German Shepherd mix. Owner surrender. Behavioral issues. The shelter manager, a tired woman named Gloria with kind eyes and exhausted shoulders, noticed Sarah's pause. "That one's been here 4 months, Gloria said softly. Previous owner was a security guard, trained him for protection work, then lost his job and couldn't keep him. Said Atlas was too aggressive, too stubborn, wouldn't listen to commands." Sarah crouched down, meeting the dog's gaze through the metal diamonds of the fence. Atlas didn't move, didn't wag, didn't beg. He simply looked at her with an intensity that felt almost human, like he was reading her, measuring her, deciding if she was worthy. "Why hasn't anyone adopted him?" Sarah asked. Gloria sighed. "People want friendly. They want tail wags and kisses. Atlas doesn't do that. He's complicated. And in a shelter, complicated means you run out of time." The words hung in the air between them. Run out of time. Sarah understood that phrase better than most. In her 15 years with the fire department, she'd learned that time was the cruelest variable in every equation. Minutes separated life from death. Seconds determined who went home and who didn't. She made the adoption papers that afternoon. The first month was brutal. Atlas didn't bond like other dogs. He didn't curl up on the couch for affection or bring toys for games of fetch. He paced Sarah's small house like a prisoner in a cell, his nails clicking on hardwood floors at 3 in the morning, when nightmares she couldn't see kept him restless. He ate mechanically, drank sparingly, and maintained a distance that felt almost intentional. But he watched, always watching. Sarah began taking him to the fire station during her shifts. Captain Rodriguez, her battalion chief, raised an eyebrow the first time she walked in with 80 pounds of silent German shepherd on a lead. "That's not a pet, Mitchell. That's a weapon with fur." "He's learning," Sarah replied, though she wasn't sure what exactly Atlas was learning, or if she was the one being taught. The other firefighters gave them space. Atlas sat in the apparatus bay while Sarah trained, his amber eyes tracking her movements as she climbed ladders, hauled hoses, practiced search patterns. He didn't bark when the alarm bells rang, didn't flinch when trucks roared to life, diesel engines shaking the concrete floor. He simply stood, positioned himself by the door, and waited for Sarah to acknowledge him. It was firefighter James Chen who first suggested Atlas might be more than just a pet. "You see how he moves?" James said one evening, watching Atlas pace the perimeter of the parking lot. "That's not random. He's scanning, assessing threats. My cousin trains military working dogs. Atlas has that same energy, like he's waiting for deployment." Sarah had dismissed it then. Atlas was damaged, not disciplined, traumatized, not trained. But late at night, when the station was quiet and only the hum of fluorescent lights filled the empty spaces, she'd catch Atlas staring at the gear wall, at her turnout coat hanging on its hook, at the helmet with her name stenciled in reflective letters. His head would tilt just slightly, as if he was memorizing the scent, the shape, the meaning. 3 months after the adoption, Station 17 received a call at 2 in the morning. Residential fire, possible entrapment. Sarah suited up in 45 seconds, muscle memory guiding her hands through buckles and straps. She was halfway to the truck when she heard it, a sound she'd never heard from Atlas before. A bark, sharp, insistent, commanding. She turned. Atlas stood in the bay doorway, his body coiled like a spring, his eyes locked on hers with such intensity that she felt it in her chest. "You can't come, buddy. Not on this one." Another bark, this time accompanied by a step forward. Captain Rodriguez appeared, already in his gear. "Mitchell, we're rolling." "Copy that, Captain." She pointed at Atlas, using the hand signal for stay. "Atlas, stay." He sat, but his eyes never left her face. And in that moment, Sarah felt something shift. Not in Atlas, in her understanding of him. The fire was routine, kitchen grease contained to one room, no injuries. But when they returned to the station at dawn, Atlas was exactly where she'd left him, sitting, watching, waiting, as if he'd never doubted she'd come back. That's when Sarah made the call. Coastal Fire Academy offered a specialized program in search and rescue canine training. Most departments paired handlers with dogs bred specifically for the work, Labradors, Golden Retrievers, breeds known for their friendly disposition and eager-to-please attitude. German Shepherds were less common, considered too independent, too intense for the emotional labor of disaster response. But Sarah didn't want common. She wanted the dog who'd waited 4 months in a shelter kennel, who paced at 3 in the morning fighting demons she couldn't see, who looked at her turnout coat like it held answers to questions he couldn't ask. The training coordinator, a weathered woman named Sergeant Linda Park, evaluated Atlas with skeptical silence. She watched him move through basic obedience patterns: sit, stay, heel, down. He performed each command with mechanical precision. No enthusiasm, no tail wags, just compliance. "He's accurate," Linda said, "but he's not engaged. Search and rescue dogs need drive. They need to want to find people. This dog acts like he's following orders from a court-martial." "Give him a chance," Sarah insisted. "Please." Linda studied her for a long moment. "You know what happens when a dog washes out of this program? They don't get a second chance. If Atlas can't handle the work, he goes back to the shelter." Sarah felt Atlas lean against her leg, the first time he'd ever initiated physical contact. The weight of him was solid, real, undeniable. He won't wash out. The training was merciless. 12 weeks of controlled burns, rubble simulations, cadaver scent work, live victim scenarios. Dogs learn to navigate unstable surfaces, squeeze through tight spaces, alert their handlers to human presence beneath debris that human senses couldn't penetrate. Most dogs bounded through the training with obvious joy. They retrieved their rewards, tennis balls, squeaky toys, treats, with wagging tails and happy barks. Atlas worked in silence. He climbed collapsed wall structures without hesitation, crawled through concrete pipe sections barely wider than his shoulders, located hidden victims in maze-like rubble piles with mechanical efficiency. But he never celebrated, never showed excitement. He simply completed each task, returned to Sarah, sat, and waited for the next command. "It's like he already knows what he's doing," Linda admitted during week 8. "Like he's remembering, not learning." "What do you mean?" Linda shook her head. "Some military working dogs, when they retire, they carry the training in their bones. But Atlas has no military history. His previous owner was civilian security, so where did this come from?" Sarah had no answer, but she was beginning to understand that Atlas's story didn't start at the shelter. It started somewhere else, somewhere harder, somewhere that had carved away everything soft and left only the essential parts, the parts that could survive when surviving was the only option. They graduated the program in early April. Atlas received his certification as a Type 1 search canine, qualified for live victim detection in urban disaster environments. At the graduation ceremony, while other handlers celebrated with family and friends, Sarah stood alone with Atlas in the parking lot. "You did it, buddy. You're official now." Atlas looked up at her. For the first time since she'd adopted him, his tail wagged. Just once. A single sweep like a flag, acknowledging victory. 2 weeks later, They deployed to their first real call. The call came in on a Tuesday morning when spring rain hammered the city like a drumroll, announcing catastrophe. Riverside Industrial Complex, partial collapse, multiple workers trapped, request for search and rescue resources. Station 17 rolled out with Atlas secured in Sarah's passenger seat, his nose pressed to the window, breath fogging the glass. The scene was controlled chaos. Police cordoned off streets. Ambulances lined the perimeter, paramedics ready with gurneys and medical kits. News helicopters circled overhead despite the rain, their cameras documenting disaster for the evening broadcast. And at the center of it all, the warehouse sagged like a broken spine. Captain Rodriguez gathered the team in the rain. Water streamed off his helmet as he pointed to the building's blueprint, hastily spread across the hood of Engine 17. Third floor gave way around 9:15. Engineering reports say the second floor is compromised. We've got at least 40 workers unaccounted for. Thermal imaging is useless. Too much ambient heat from machinery. We need boots on the ground and dogs in the rubble. His eyes found Sarah. Mitchell, you and Atlas take Sector 3. That's the northwest corner, shipping department, last known location of 12 employees. Sarah nodded, checking Atlas's harness, ensuring his vest was secure. The bright orange fabric marked him as a working dog, official essential. His certification tags clinked softly against the metal clip. They entered through a side access point, where the structure remained relatively stable. Inside, the world had been reimagined by violence. What had once been a functioning warehouse floor was now a landscape of destruction. Metal shelving units leaned at impossible angles. Cardboard boxes spilled their contents like intestines from a gutted beast. The ceiling hung in jagged sheets, revealing twisted rebar and sparking electrical wires. And the dust was everywhere, a fine gray powder that coated every surface, turned every breath into a rasping cough, made every step uncertain. "Atlas, seek," Sarah commanded, releasing his lead. Atlas moved immediately, not frantically, not eagerly, but with that same mechanical precision he'd shown since day one. His nose worked the air, drawing in scent molecules, processing information invisible to human senses. He navigated through the debris field with the confidence of someone who'd seen this before, who'd trained for this moment in ways Sarah still didn't fully understand. She followed, tracking his movements, watching for his alert signal. A bark followed by a sit position, standard protocol, clear communication. 30 minutes in, Atlas alerted twice. Both times, firefighters converged on the location, moving carefully, stabilizing debris, extracting survivors who emerged blinking and crying and alive. 12 employees unaccounted for. After 2 hours, they'd found 8, 4 still missing. Sarah's radio crackled, Rodriguez's voice strained with exhaustion. "All units, be advised, structural engineers are calling time. Building integrity is compromised beyond safe entry. We're initiating withdrawal protocol." Withdrawal. The word every rescuer dreaded. It meant leaving. It meant accepting that some searches ended without answers. Sarah looked at Atlas. He sat beside her in the rubble, covered in grey dust that made him look like a ghost of himself. His amber eyes were locked on something in the distance, a section of collapsed flooring where steel beams had created a small void space. "Atlas, come." He didn't move. "Atlas." She used her firm voice, the one that commanded obedience. "Come." His ears flicked back, acknowledging her, but his body remained frozen. His gaze never wavered from that void space. Sarah felt unease creep up her spine like cold fingers. Atlas had never refused a command. Not once in 6 months. Not in training, not in certification, not in their previous deployments. "Mitchell, you copy?" Rodriguez's voice demanded confirmation. She pressed her radio. "Copy, Captain. Withdrawing now." But when she moved to collect Atlas, he stood and walked toward the void space, deliberately, purposefully, completely ignoring her. "Atlas." "No!" She hurried after him, boots slipping on loose debris. "Atlas, heal!" He reached the edge of the void and looked back at her. Just once, and in that look Sarah saw something that stopped her cold. Certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty. Then he barked. Not his alert bark. Something different. Something urgent and insistent and desperate. Sarah knelt beside him, peering into the darkness of the void. Her flashlight beam cut through shadow, revealing twisted metal and broken concrete. No movement, no sound, no indication of life. "There's nothing here, buddy. We have to go." Atlas barked again. This time he didn't wait for permission. He squeezed into the void space, his body disappearing into the darkness. "Atlas!" Sarah's voice cracked with panic. "Atlas, return!" From somewhere in the darkness, she heard him, not barking, whining, a sound she'd never heard from him before, a sound that bypassed her training and hit her directly in the gut, the sound of a dog who'd found something that mattered more than commands, more than protocol, more than the safety that withdrawal promised. Sarah grabbed her radio. Her hand shook. "Captain, I need a team at Sector 3, northwest corner. Atlas has gone off pattern." Static. Then Rodriguez's voice, sharp with concern. "Define off pattern." "He's in a void space." Refusing recall. "Sir, he's never done this before." A pause. "Mitchell, structural integrity is failing. We don't have time." "I know what he's doing, Captain." She surprised herself with the conviction in her voice. "He's found someone." Another pause. Longer this time. Sarah could imagine Rodriguez weighing the variables. Risk versus reward. Protocol versus instinct. The lives of responders versus the possibility of one more survivor. "You've got 10 minutes, he finally said. "Then I'm pulling everyone out regardless." Sarah didn't waste time responding. She wedged herself into the void space after Atlas, following the sound of his whining, tracking him by feel and faith through a darkness that felt like drowning. The space narrowed, forcing her to crawl. Her helmet scraped against concrete, her shoulders bumped against metal edges. The dust was thicker here, choking, blinding. Her flashlight beam caught glimpses of Atlas ahead, a flash of orange vest, a sweep of tail, a reflection of amber eyes looking back to ensure she followed, and then the space opened up. Sarah emerged into a small pocket, maybe 6 feet across, formed by the intersection of collapsed beams. Her flashlight swept the area, empty, nothing but debris and shadow. "Atlas, there's nothing." He wasn't looking at the debris. He was looking down, at the floor, at a section of concrete that had cracked into fragments like a broken puzzle. Between the cracks, Sarah saw something that made her breath stop. Fingers, small fingers, pale in the flashlight beam. A child's hand, partially visible through the gap, reaching upward like a prayer. The world compressed to that single image. Those fingers, so still they could have been carved from marble. So small they looked lost in the vastness of the destruction that had buried them. Sarah dropped to her knees, pressing her face close to the crack. "Hello, can you hear me? Hello?" Silence. The kind of silence that screams with possibility. The terrible silence of unconsciousness, or the even more terrible silence that comes after. But then movement. Slight. The fingers twitched, curled, reached. "I see you," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I see you, sweetheart. We're here. Help is here." She keyed her radio with shaking hands. "Captain, I have confirmation. Child victim, approximately 6 to 8 years old, trapped beneath floor collapse in Sector 3. Status unknown but showing signs of life. I need heavy rescue and medical support immediately." Rodriguez's response was immediate. "Copy that. Team is en route." "Mitchell." "Sir, don't move that debris without support. If you shift the wrong piece..." "Understood, Captain." But understanding and accepting were different things. Sarah stared at those small fingers, watched them move with such fragile hope, and every instinct in her body screamed to dig, to move, to free this child from the tomb that had swallowed them. Atlas pressed against her side. He'd stopped whining. Now he sat in perfect stillness, his eyes fixed on the crack, his entire body radiating focus, waiting, patient in a way that felt almost supernatural. Footsteps approached. Voices. The heavy rescue team arrived with hydraulic spreaders, airbags, stabilization equipment. James Chen took position beside Sarah, his young face drawn with concentration. "Talk to me," he said. "Child victim, trapped under this concrete section. Can't assess full situation until we open it up." James examined the debris field with the careful eye of someone who understood physics and tragedy in equal measure. "This is load-bearing. If we lift wrong, the whole pocket could pancake. So we don't lift wrong." He met her eyes. "Sarah, that's a child down there." "I know. If we fail, then we fail trying." James nodded slowly, called to his team. They worked with agonizing precision, placing airbags beneath the concrete slabs, inflating them with controlled bursts of pressure. Every movement was calculated. Every adjustment was measured. They weren't just lifting debris. They were negotiating with gravity itself, asking it, demanding it, to give back what it had taken. Atlas watched without moving. His amber eyes tracked every tool, every action, every micro-adjustment. If he'd been human, Sarah would have said he was memorizing the process, learning, filing away information for a future he could somehow sense approaching. The concrete shifted. 1 inch, 2 inches. Enough. James grabbed his flashlight, angling the beam through the widened gap. What he saw made him exhale sharply. "Sarah." Something in his voice made her stomach drop. "What is it? You need to see this." She looked. The beam illuminated a small chamber beneath the floor, a void created by chance and physics, where falling debris had formed a protective pocket instead of crushing what lay beneath. And there, curled in the fetal position on bare concrete, was a little girl, maybe 7 years old, dark hair matted with dust, wearing what had once been a pink t-shirt, now grey with powder and dark with something else. Blood. Her face was turned away, but Sarah could see the rise and fall of her back. Shallow breaths, slow but present, alive. "She's breathing," James confirmed. "But Sarah, look at her positioning." The girl had wedged herself into the corner of the void, pressed against a section of wall that had somehow remained intact. Her arms were wrapped around something, a backpack, bright blue, clutched to her chest like a life preserver. "Why is there a child in an industrial warehouse?" Sarah whispered. James shook his head. "Take your kid to work day? Maybe her parent was an employee?" It made sense, but something about it felt wrong. The warehouse had collapsed at 9:15 in the morning. The workers had been on shift, but this child, her positioning, her location, the way she'd tucked herself into that corner, she was hiding, Sarah said. "What? Look at her. She didn't get caught in the collapse. She was already down there, already in that space. She was hiding before the building came down." The implications of that statement hung in the air like smoke, but there was no time to process it. The girl needed extraction, needed medical care, needed to be anywhere but buried beneath a failing building. Sarah pulled off her glove, reached through the gap and touched the girl's ankle. Cool skin, pulse present but thready. The child didn't respond to the contact. "We need this gap wider." "I can't reach her vitals, can't assess for spinal injury." The rescue team worked. More airbags, more pressure, more negotiation with physics. The gap widened to 2 feet, enough for a person to fit through, barely. Sarah didn't hesitate. She was the smallest on the team, the most likely to fit. She wedged herself through the opening, feeling concrete scrape against her shoulders, her hips, her helmet. For a moment she was stuck, suspended between 2 worlds, the one where her team waited and the one where a child lay broken. Then she was through. She dropped into the void, landing in a crouch beside the girl. Up close, the damage was more apparent. Blood crusted in the girl's hairline. Her left arm lay at an odd angle, definitely fractured. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, the kind of pattern that suggested shock and possible internal injuries. "Hey, sweetheart," Sarah said softly, touching the girl's shoulder. "My name is Sarah. I'm a firefighter. You're safe now. Can you hear me?" No response. Sarah checked the girl's pulse at her neck, weak but regular. She examined the backpack still clutched in the child's arms. It was covered in cartoon characters, cheerful animals that seemed obscene in this context. But the girl's grip on it was so tight that Sarah couldn't remove it without risking further injury. "James, I need a pediatric C-collar and a backboard. She's unconscious but breathing. Possible head trauma, confirmed fracture to left arm, unknown internal injuries." "Copy that." Equipment was passed through the gap. Sarah worked with hands that had trained for this moment, but had never expected the moment to involve someone so small, so vulnerable, so impossibly young to be buried in the aftermath of industrial failure. She secured the C-collar, supporting the girl's neck, slid the backboard beneath her with movements so careful they barely qualified as movement at all, strapped her in, and all the while, the girl held that backpack like it contained her entire world. "We're ready for extraction," Sarah called. The team above began the delicate process of lifting the board through the gap. It required tilting, angling, precise coordination. Sarah guided from below, calling adjustments, ensuring the board didn't catch on sharp edges that could cause more damage. And through it all, Atlas watched from above. His head appeared in the gap, those amber eyes tracking the girl's movement with intensity that bordered on obsessive. When they finally had her through, James and his team took over. They transferred her to a proper stretcher, secured her for transport. Paramedics descended immediately, starting IVs, checking vitals, preparing her for the ambulance ride that could mean the difference between recovery and loss. Sarah climbed out of the void, her uniform torn, her hands bleeding from scrapes she didn't remember getting. Captain Rodriguez appeared, his face grim. "Mitchell, good work. Now we evacuate. Buildings at critical failure. The other missing workers are gone," he said quietly. "Or they're beyond where we can reach them safely. We've done what we can." It was the hardest sentence in rescue work. We've done what we can. It meant accepting limits, accepting loss, accepting that sometimes the building won. Sometimes entropy and chaos claimed lives despite everyone's best efforts. They withdrew in ordered chaos, teams retreating, equipment being pulled, personnel accounted for. Sarah moved with them, Atlas at her heel, his nose occasionally touching her hand as if checking that she was real, that she hadn't disappeared into the void like the girl almost had. Outside, the rain had stopped. Weak sunlight filtered through breaking clouds, illuminating the scene with surreal clarity. The ambulance was loading the girl, paramedics working with controlled urgency. Sarah caught a glimpse of the blue backpack, still clutched in the child's arms, now surrounded by medical equipment and IV lines. "Who is she?" Sarah asked a nearby police officer. He checked his tablet. No ID yet. None of the employee manifests list bringing children to work today. "We are checking missing persons reports, school absences, but nothing matches so far." "She was hiding," Sarah insisted. Before the collapse, she was already in that space. The officer's expression shifted. Why would a kid be hiding in a warehouse? Sarah had no answer, but she felt Atlas press against her leg again, that solid weight that had become his way of communicating certainty. She looked down. He was staring at the ambulance, at the girl, at something Sarah couldn't see but he could sense. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing, carrying the girl toward St. Catherine's Hospital and whatever future awaited her there. Sarah watched it go, feeling something unfinished settle in her chest. Some question left unanswered. Rodriguez appeared at her shoulder. "Hell of a first major deployment." "Atlas found her," Sarah said. "I was ready to withdraw. He refused. Dogs have instincts we don't understand. Probably caught her scent when we couldn't." It was the logical explanation, the rational one. But Sarah remembered the way Atlas had moved through the debris, the certainty in his eyes, the whine that had sounded less like an alert and more like recognition, like he'd known she was there, not sensed, known. "Captain, can I get information on where they're taking her?" Rodriguez studied her. "St. Catherine's. But Mitchell, you did your job. Let the hospital do theirs." She nodded. But something in her had shifted. This wasn't finished. And somehow, looking at Atlas as he sat in the rain-dampened parking lot, she knew he felt it too. The girl wasn't just a rescue, she was a beginning. 3 hours later, Sarah sat in the waiting room of St. Catherine's Hospital, with Atlas lying at her feet. She'd changed out of her torn turnout gear, showered in the station locker room, but the dust of the warehouse still seemed to coat her lungs with every breath. A doctor emerged through the emergency department doors. Young, maybe 30, with the exhausted eyes of someone who'd been on shift too long. His badge read, "Dr. Nakamura. You're the firefighter who found her." Sarah stood. "Yes. How is she?" "Stable. Fractured left radius and ulnar. Mild concussion, dehydration. But she's remarkably intact considering. We're keeping her sedated for now while we monitor for internal bleeding." "Has anyone claimed her? Family? Parents?" Dr. Nakamura's expression darkened. "That's the problem. No one's come forward. Police ran her fingerprints, nothing. Facial recognition against missing persons databases, nothing. It's like she doesn't exist. That's impossible. Someone has to be looking for her." "You'd think," he rubbed his face. "But there's something else, something the police want to discuss with you. Detective Martinez is in consultation room 3. Sarah followed him down antiseptic hallways, Atlas padding silently beside her. The consultation room was small, windowless, containing only a table, chairs, and a whiteboard covered in what looked like timeline notes. Detective Carmen Martinez stood when they entered. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that suggested she'd seen humanity's worst and was still somehow surprised by new variations. "Captain Mitchell, thank you for coming. Please, sit." Sarah sat. Atlas positioned himself beside her chair, his amber eyes fixed on the detective with unblinking focus. "That's some dog," Martinez observed. "He's certified search and rescue. He's the one who found the girl." "Yes, about that." Martinez pulled out a tablet, swiped through files. "The girl you found, we've identified her. Her name is Emma Reeves, 8 years old. She's been missing for 6 months. The words hit Sarah like physical weight. 6 months. But the warehouse only collapsed this morning. I know. Martinez turned the tablet so Sarah could see. The screen displayed a school photo of Emma. Same dark hair, same small features, but in the photo, she was smiling, clean, unbroken. A different version of the broken child Sarah had pulled from the rubble. Emma disappeared from Sacramento in April. She was taken from her elementary school playground during recess. Witnesses saw a woman, possibly her mother, take her. But the mother had lost custody 2 years prior due to drug charges. CPS was in the process of terminating parental rights. Sarah studied the photo. You're saying her mother kidnapped her? That's what we thought initially, but we could never find them. No credit card transactions, no sightings, nothing. It was like they'd vanished. Until this morning, the warehouse collapse. Yes, Martinez leaned forward. But here's what doesn't make sense. We've interviewed the warehouse employees we rescued. None of them remember seeing a child. None of them knew a child was on the premises. And the warehouse, it's been operating normally for months. Daily shifts, regular security patrols, constant activity. Sarah felt cold understanding begin to form. You're saying Emma was there for months, hidden. That's exactly what I'm saying. The question is how, and why, and where the hell is her mother now? Atlas shifted beside Sarah's chair, a small movement, but purposeful. Sarah looked down. He was staring at something on the table, Martinez's tablet, currently displaying Emma's photo. Detective, can I see that? Martinez handed over the tablet. Sarah scrolled through the file, reading quickly. Emma's mother was Christina Reeves, 34. Previous arrests for possession, prostitution, theft. CPS had removed Emma from her care at age 6, following reports of neglect and suspected abuse. Emma had been placed with a foster family in Sacramento. By all accounts, she'd been thriving. Then Christina showed up at the school one day and walked away with her daughter. The case file included recent photos of Christina. Sarah studied them. Thin, worn. The kind of face that showed the weight of bad decisions and harder circumstances. We think Christina was hiding Emma in that warehouse, Martinez continued. There's a supervisor at the facility, Marcus Webb. He worked nights, had access to the whole building. We found evidence of a makeshift living space in the basement section that collapsed. Blankets, food wrappers, children's clothing, all hidden behind shipping pallets in a storage area that wasn't in regular use. So Christina had help. This Webb character was hiding them. That's our theory. But here's the problem. Marcus Webb died in the collapse. We recovered his body 2 hours ago from the same section where you found Emma. And Christina Reeves. We have no idea where she is. She wasn't in the building when it collapsed. She's vanished again. Sarah looked at Emma's photo. 8 years old. 6 months of hiding in a warehouse. A mother who'd stolen her from safety and trapped her in a nightmare of secrecy and fear. What happens to Emma now? Once she's medically cleared, she goes back to her foster family, the Hendersons. Good people. They never stopped looking for her. Martinez paused. You saved her life, Captain. Whatever was happening in that warehouse, whatever her mother was planning, you ended it. But the words felt hollow, because Sarah kept thinking about how Emma had been positioned in that void, curled into that corner, clutching that backpack like salvation. She'd been hiding, not from the collapse, from something else. Detective, can I see Emma's backpack? Martinez frowned. It's with her personal effects. Why? She wouldn't let it go. Even unconscious, she was holding it. Something shifted in Martinez's expression. Wait here. She left the room. Returned 5 minutes later, carrying a sealed evidence bag containing the bright blue backpack Sarah remembered. The cartoon animals looked garish under the fluorescent lights. Martinez opened the bag carefully, pulled out the backpack. It was child-sized, covered in dust and dried blood, the zipper partially open. We haven't done a full inventory yet, Martinez said. Just confirm no weapons or drugs. She unzipped it fully. Inside were the expected items, a small flashlight, a water bottle, granola bars, a stuffed elephant with mismatched button eyes. But beneath those, wrapped carefully in a plastic grocery bag, was a notebook. Martinez pulled it out. The notebook was the cheap kind, spiral-bound, with a unicorn on the cover. She opened it. The pages were filled with a child's handwriting, uneven letters, simple words, but the content. Sarah read over Martinez's shoulder. Her stomach turned. Day 1. Mommy says we have to hide. She says bad people are looking for us. She says if they find us, they'll take me away forever. Day 8. It's dark here. Mr. Webb brings us food at night. Mommy cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. Day 15. I asked if we could go home. Mommy got mad, said there is no home, said this is better than what they'll do to us. Day 23. I'm scared. The warehouse makes loud noises. Mommy says it's just the machines. She says we have to be quiet, always quiet. The entries continued, days blurring together in darkness and fear. A child trying to make sense of a situation no child should have to understand. The final entries were dated just days before the collapse. Day 178. I heard Mommy talking to Mr. Webb. She said she's running out of time. She said they found us. I don't know who they are, but I'm scared. Day 182. Mommy left last night. She said she'd be back soon. She said if anything happens, I should hide in the small space behind the wall. The place only I can fit. She made me promise. Day 183. Mommy didn't come back. Mr. Webb says she's coming soon, but he looks scared too. I'm hiding in the small space like Mommy said. I'm writing this so if something happens, someone will know I was here. Someone will know I was good. I was quiet. I did what Mommy said. Please tell my foster mum. I'm sorry I left. Tell her I didn't want to go. Tell her I want to come home. The last line was smeared, as if tears had fallen on the page before it dried. Sarah's hands trembled. Atlas stood, pressed his head against her knee with unusual insistence. Martinez closed the notebook slowly. Christina knew something was coming. She prepared Emma to hide. The collapse. Sarah said, "You think it was deliberate?" "I think Christina Reeves was involved in something that scared her enough to kidnap her own daughter and hide her for 6 months. And I think whatever she was running from finally caught up. So Emma is still in danger. Maybe. Until we find Christina and understand what's happening, we have to assume Emma could be a target." Martinez stood. "I'm posting protection at the hospital. No one gets to Emma without authorization. And we're accelerating the foster placement process. The faster we get her back to the Hendersons and out of the public eye, the safer she'll be." Sarah looked down at Atlas. He was still staring at her, those amber eyes holding something she was beginning to recognize. Not judgment, not expectation, something deeper, something that felt like shared understanding. He'd known. Somehow, in that warehouse, Atlas had known Emma was there, had known she needed them, had disobeyed direct orders because he understood what Sarah hadn't yet grasped. That some rescues don't end when you pull someone from the rubble. Some rescues are just beginning. 2 days later, Sarah stood outside room 412 in St. Catherine's pediatric ward, with Atlas beside her. Detective Martinez had cleared her for a visit, wanting Emma to see the person who'd saved her. Some therapy theory about closure and processing trauma. Sarah wasn't sure it would help, but she couldn't refuse. The room was bright, filled with afternoon sunlight. Someone had taped drawings to the walls, flowers, rainbows, animals. Emma sat in the hospital bed, her left arm in a cast decorated with stickers, an IV line running to her right hand. She looked tiny against the white sheets, fragile. But when Sarah entered, Emma's eyes lit up. "You found me," Emma said. Her voice was small but clear. Sarah approached slowly. "I had help. This is Atlas." Emma's attention shifted to the German Shepherd. Something in her expression transformed, fear melting into wonder. "He's beautiful. He's also very good at finding people, even when they're hidden. I was hiding really good, in the small space like Mommy told me." Sarah pulled a chair beside the bed. Atlas positioned himself where Emma could see him without having to turn. The dog's amber eyes stayed fixed on the girl with that same intense focus Sarah had seen at the warehouse. "You did everything right," Sarah said gently. "You were very brave." Emma looked down at her cast. "Is Mommy coming?" The question hung in the air. Sarah glanced at the uniformed officer standing discreetly by the door, the protection Martinez had promised. Emma didn't seem to notice him, or maybe she was used to pretending not to notice things. "Your foster mom is coming," Sarah said. "Mrs. Henderson. She's been looking for you every single day since you left." Tears filled Emma's eyes. "I didn't want to leave. Mommy said we had to. She said bad people would hurt me if we didn't hide." "Did your mom tell you who the bad people were?" Emma shook her head. "She just said they were coming, that we had to stay quiet and hidden until she made it safe." She looked up, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Is she mad at me because I didn't stay hidden good enough?" The question broke something in Sarah's chest. This child, who'd survived 6 months in a warehouse, who'd hidden during a building collapse, who'd been found broken and unconscious, was worried about disappointing her mother. "You did nothing wrong," Sarah said firmly. "Nothing. Do you understand me?" Emma nodded, but doubt lingered in her eyes. Atlas made a sound, a soft whine that drew both their attentions. He rose from his position, walked slowly to the bedside. His movements were careful, deliberate, as if he understood he was approaching something fragile. He placed his head on the edge of Emma's bed, looked up at her with those amber eyes that held depths Sarah was only beginning to understand. Emma's hand, the one without the IV, reached out tentatively, touched Atlas's head, ran her small fingers through the fur at his ears. "He's soft," she whispered. "He's also smart," Sarah said. "He knew you were there when no one else did. He wouldn't give up looking until we found you." Why? The simple question held universes of complexity. Why would a dog defy orders? Why would he risk his handler's safety? Why would he care about a child he'd never met? Sarah thought about Atlas's history, the shelter kennel, the owner surrender, the behavioral issues that had nearly ended his life before it really began, the way he'd watched her turn out coat like it held answers, the way he'd worked in silence through training, learning patterns he seemed to already know. "I think," Sarah said slowly, "he knows what it's like to be lost, and he knows how important it is when someone refuses to stop looking." Emma processed this. Her hand stayed on Atlas's head, fingers buried in fur that was probably the first gentle thing she'd touched in months. "I want to go home," she finally said, "to Mrs. Henderson's house. Can I go home?" "Very soon," Sarah promised. Emma was released to the Hendersons 48 hours later. Sarah wasn't there for the reunion, but Martinez sent her a photo, Emma wrapped in her foster mother's arms, both of them crying, both of them holding on like they'd never let go again. The investigation into Christina Reeves continued. Police found evidence connecting Marcus Webb to a drug distribution network that used the warehouse as a storage point. Apparently, Christina had gotten involved, then tried to back out when she realized how dangerous the people were. She'd taken Emma and run, but Webb, maybe out of loyalty, maybe out of fear, had helped her hide. The collapse had been an accident, structural failure due to years of deferred maintenance and unauthorized modifications to the building's load-bearing elements. But Christina's paranoia hadn't been entirely unfounded. 2 weeks after Emma's rescue, police arrested 3 men connected to the distribution network. They'd been actively looking for Christina, had tracked her to the warehouse area. Whether they'd have found Emma if the building hadn't collapsed was a question no one could answer. Christina Reeves herself remained missing. Some believed she'd died in the collapse, her body still buried in sections they couldn't safely excavate. Others thought she'd run again, this time without her daughter to slow her down. Sarah chose to believe Christina had watched from somewhere safe, had seen the rescue trucks and ambulances, had seen her daughter carried out alive, and had made the hardest decision a mother could make, to let her go to people who could keep her safe in ways Christina never could. It was probably too generous an interpretation, but Sarah needed to believe that somewhere in Christina's damaged heart, maternal love had won out over fear and addiction and all the bad choices that had led them to that warehouse. 6 weeks after the warehouse collapse, Sarah received a letter from Emma. It was written in careful child handwriting on notebook paper, decorated with stickers. "Dear Sarah and Atlas, thank you for finding me. Mrs. Henderson says you saved my life. She says that makes you a hero. I think she's right. I'm back at school now. It's hard sometimes. The other kids ask where I was and I don't know what to say, but Mrs. Henderson says I can tell them I had to go away, but now I'm home. I think about the warehouse sometimes, how dark it was, how scared I was. But then I remember how you didn't stop looking, how Atlas knew I was there when nobody else did. My counselor says dogs can sense things people can't. She says Atlas probably smelled me or heard me or something like that. But I think it's different. I think Atlas understood what it's like to be lost, and that made him better at finding lost people. Mrs. Henderson says maybe when I'm older, I can work with rescue dogs too. She says it's okay to take something bad and use it to help other people. She says that's how we turn hurt into healing. I don't know if I'm brave enough for that yet, but maybe someday. Please tell Atlas thank you. Tell him I think about him every day. Tell him he's the best dog in the whole world. Love." Emma Sarah read the letter 3 times, sitting on her back porch while Atlas lay at her feet. When she finished, she looked down at the dog who'd refused to obey, who'd defied her orders because he knew better, who'd found a child everyone else had been ready to leave behind. "She thinks you're a hero," Sarah said. Atlas's tail swept the porch boards. Once, the same single acknowledgement he'd given at graduation. Sarah smiled, reached down and scratched behind his ears, feeling the solid warmth of him under her hands. "I think she's right." In the distance, Station 17's alarm began to wail. Another call, another emergency, another chance to find someone who needed finding. Sarah stood. Atlas stood with her, already moving toward her truck before she'd even given the command. They drove through evening streets as the sun set behind them, painting the city in shades of amber and shadow. At a red light, Sarah glanced at Atlas in the passenger seat. He was watching the road ahead, ears forward, body alert, ready, the way he was always ready. "You know," Sarah said, "I used to think you were broken, that whatever happened before the shelter had damaged you too badly to fix." Atlas turned his head, looked at her with those amber eyes. "But I was wrong," Sarah continued. "You weren't broken. You were just waiting for someone who needed exactly what you could give, waiting for the right moment to do what you'd always known how to do." The light changed to green. Sarah drove on. "Finding people who are lost," she said quietly. "Finding them even when everyone else has stopped looking. Even when the orders say withdraw. Even when it would be easier, safer to walk away." Atlas returned his gaze to the road, but his presence felt different now. Not the rigid isolation of the shelter kennel, not the mechanical precision of training. Something warmer, more connected, more certain. At the station, they geared up in companionable silence. Sarah checked his vest, his harness, the certification tags that marked him official, essential, trusted. Captain Rodriguez met them in the bay. "Mitchell, we've got a structural fire with possible entrapment. You and Atlas ready?" Sarah looked down. Atlas looked up. In his eyes, she saw the same certainty she'd seen at the warehouse, the same absolute conviction that somewhere in the chaos ahead, someone needed them, and they would not stop until that someone was found. "We're ready, Captain." They loaded into Engine 17, the diesel engine roaring to life, sirens beginning their familiar wail. As they pulled out into traffic, Sarah thought about Emma's letter, about second chances and lost things found, about how the most broken among us sometimes become the best at healing others, because they understand. They've been there, in the darkness, in the fear, in the moment when hope seemed impossible but showed up anyway in the form of someone who refused to stop looking. Sarah reached over, rested her hand on Atlas's head. He leaned into the contact, just slightly, but it was enough. "Let's go find them, buddy." The truck accelerated into the evening, carrying them toward whatever awaited, toward fire and fear and the terrible math of rescue work, toward the moment, inevitable, approaching, when Atlas would once again prove that obedience isn't always the highest virtue, that sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who know when to break the rules, the ones who understand that some things, some people, some lives, some moments are worth the risk of defiance, worth the certainty of diving into darkness because you believe absolutely that something precious waits to be found. The siren wailed, the city blurred past, and in the passenger seat, a German shepherd with amber eyes watched the road ahead, his body coiled with purpose, ready for the moment when the world would need him to be once again exactly what he was, a finder of lost things, a believer in impossible searches, a reminder that sometimes the only way to save someone is to refuse, absolutely refuse, to leave them behind.